Hello, we are Team 5, and this is Katie Yost and Jeff Franz that are going to be presenting on the risks, challenges, and mitigation strategies when improving organizational performance. So the only constant is change. You can either change or have change happen to you. In business leadership, leaders encourage their companies to change with technology and promote innovation in order to stay on top of the current times. So this is a list of risks and challenges that come with change that we will cover in our presentation, such as getting buy-in from employees, understanding what change would benefit best the company, challenges with downsizing and outsourcing, ensuring changes align with the company's values, risks that productivity may suffer at first with change, the challenge of measuring the effectiveness of change, risk of steeper learning curves for future managers, and ensuring change doesn't add complexity to the company. So getting buy-in from employees and investors often causes resistance. With change comes resistance, and it's important for HR to invest time and money into hiring and training managers to be the type of leaders that the company needs. These leaders have a responsibility to lead change with employees and start creating the culture that the company wants to implement. When getting buy-in from employees and investors, it's huge because they're the biggest part of creating change and having that change hit the team. Every manager should work to develop a culture that embraces change as covered in class. These are the ways to combat VUCA, or VUCA, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So I want to pause for a second so that we can see the ways that we can combat these changes. So in order to combat volatility, we need to embrace change and build in against agility. Uncertainty, we need to seek out more and better businesses and competitive intelligence. For complexity, we need to simplify and adapt our organization to mirror the situation. And then, of course, ambiguity, we need to be experimenting. In the Harvard article that we read, it suggests that 10% of managers and employees are devoted to helping change a team and working towards the best change for the company. Managers need to form teams, and inside those teams, they need to study and perform cost-benefit analysis to ensure the change is worth the expense and the trade-offs. Now I'm going to pass it over to Jeff, who's going to be covering the challenges with downsizing or outsourcing.
Okay, so some of the challenges with downsizing and outsourcing are the loss of knowledge, possible increase in others' workload, and employees no longer feeling safe at their job, feeling like they may also lose their job. So how we're going to combat that? For the knowledge, we need to create a culture of learning throughout the company. So if you lose anyone, it's not going to be so detrimental to the company. So there's going to be a lot of on-the-job training that's needed. Possible increase in others' workload. So when you're making those changes, you need to have feedback channels ready so the employees and supervisors can share that information, what's going on and how much work people have. And managers must be aware that this about the work-life balance for these workers, and then work to resolve these issues early. And then last, for no longer feeling safe at the job, you got to build trust with your employees. Here I put the equation for trust. So managers have to work with competency, reliability, sincerity, and make sure that their employees know that they're in the best interest and know what they're doing with their strategy. So ensuring changes align with the company's values and strategy. So you're going to come up with a strategy for the change, or what you're going to change to. And then after you've come up with that strategy, you got to ensure that the values of the stakeholders, that their ethical values aren't violated. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. After you've come up with your strategy, the next thing you need to do is understand what capabilities you'll need. So with this, you're going to have to look at your people. Do you have the right skills? If you don't, are you going to train your people? or you may have to have HR get the right people. So, but the first thing you got to start is with strategy, and then you got to work after that with who you're going to put in those places. So understanding that productivity may suffer at first is a challenge. At Unilever, the switch to triple bottom line, a third of their top 100 executives left, and their share prices went down by 10%. This graph I show right here kind of shows the emotion that people go through during a change. So obviously at depression, people might not be as productive as they were before, and when you're changing jobs, things are different. You're not going to be as good as what you were before. So how are you going to combat that? You need to communicate this to your stakeholders and shareholders that, this time period you may have a dip in productivity, but you expect it to grow after that. You need a budget and schedule for temporary lowered productivity, and then strategize to make impact on customers minimal. So maybe that means scheduling during an off season for your company. Another challenge is measuring the effectiveness of the change. Once again, you need to have feedback channels from your employees and your supervisors, mill managers, or whoever, to let you know what's being effective. So you're also going to have pre-established measurements decided prior to making that change, and you need to follow up on those. And then you also need to instill a culture that's agile enough to make changes within the changes. So your original strategy probably won't work right away, but you want to keep that strategy, or that your initial strategy, but maybe change a little thing here and there. And that's what I'm talking about, making changes within the change. There's also a possibility of having a steeper learning curve for future managers. Earlier we talked about downsizing, and lots of times that means middle managers are removed. So if you remove middle managers, this doesn't give new managers a place to ease into new leadership roles or management roles. So what we're going to have to do, or what you're going to have to do to mitigate this, is you're going to have to invest in training. You're going to have to start training employees earlier on how to be a leader and get them ready for those upper management roles. HR is going to also have to look to hire people with natural management and leadership skills that will fit into that quicker. And then also, again, create a culture of continuous training. So getting people to be ready to take on that next step. And the last thing that I'm going to cover is to ensure changes don't add to the complexity of the company. So the changes that you make should make things more simplistic. It needs to be easy to implement first off, and then you need to educate your employees before the change happens, just to make it all easier for the employees. Afterwards, you need to look to review, eliminate, and standardize processes, find out what works, and make it simple for the employees to understand what their job is and to perform it. And then afterwards, get feedback from employees how their job could be made easier. The employees know their job better than anyone else, and they're full of information. Make it so they can relay that back up to management to find out what could be done easier for their job. So that's all that we have for our presentation. Here are some of your sources. We are Team 5. Thank you for listening.